Coming up on this episode of the Social Hour, Sonar's founder and CEO Brett Martin talks to us about his plans for the next phase of geolocation and meeting new people. GroupMe gets 85 million, and Skype gets GroupMe, and QR codes have struck a chord. All that, and we'll stumble upon a few other things on this episode of the Social Hour.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is the Social Hour, episode 22, recorded Monday, August 22nd, 2011. This episode of the Social Hour is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your new account for 6 months, go to Squarespace.com and use the offer code SOCIALHOUR8. And by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your PC, your Mac, your iPad, your iPhone, or your TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For a free 30-day trial, go to Netflix.com/twit. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Social Hour. We're on episode 22, and from Petaluma, California, the day after what I hear was a really rockin' TWiT party. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur from Toronto, Ontario. I was not at the TWiT party last night, but I was up in the woods without internet access, and I was going through withdrawal, and thank goodness I'm back to a good internet connection and some great social media chat.
Absolutely. So you were in the woods. You weren't able to come to the party because obviously you were far away and you were unplugging. I wasn't able to come to the party because I was on my way back from Las Vegas and it just got too late. But apparently they had a pretty good time, Amber, to the point where we did a lot of these, like, where does this cable go this morning when I first walked in. In fact, people around us during the show will be putting all of our sets back together. So it's very exciting.
It's not a good party unless Leo dances, though, Sarah. You know that, right?
Yes, and from what I hear, he did.
Oh, see? I have video of Leo dancing in, I think it was 2005 at a party, and I promised him I will never share that with anyone.
You know, there was actually, way back in the day, old tech TV people will know what I'm talking about. Leo would be annoyed if he heard this conversation right now, but there was a picture that was taken from a tech TV party. They tended to be pretty wild, and there was a picture of Leo that circulated around the internet, and he did not like that picture. He looked like he was having a great time, but, you know, it's just one of those pictures where it's like, ooh, yeah, you look like you were having a really good time. That's why we love Leo, because he dances at parties.
Yeah, it's good. And he does it, you know, he does it with so much energy and enthusiasm.
Well, we have a good show today. As always, we're, you know, it's Monday morning. We're back on the social train. Amber, we're going to get you caught up because I know that you were a little bit out of touch. We're going to start with a guest from Sonar. That's at Sonar, SONAR.me. The co-founder and CEO of Sonar, Brett Martin, joins us now. Hey, Brett.
Howdy.
Hey, Brett. Thanks for coming on the show. Sarah actually mentioned Sonar a few episodes ago and kind of gave us a scoop on what it does. But maybe you can tell us in your own words why you think this is the next big thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sonar pretty simply is a mobile application that uncovers the connections you share with people nearby. So it's kind of like that moment when you're walking down the street and you see someone, you know, wearing your shorts from your college, and you're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Like, you know, I wonder who that person is. So Sonar basically works in the background and is constantly surfacing sort of serendipitous connections everywhere you go. So you walk into Whole Foods and you see someone there, and Sonar tells you, oh, that's a friend of a friend, or that's someone you went to college with, or that's someone you follow on Twitter. So just basically bubbling up those sort of magic moments to you everywhere you go.
So I've got Sonar running on my iPad here, which what's kind of cool is that you know, we do this for the shooting purposes of the show. We can just see it better than a smaller iPhone, but you know, it runs on either one, and I've set up so that which are the main networks that Sonar connects to, Brett? Because what's nice about it, and what I noticed right away was, as long as I'm already pretty vocal on a variety of other location-based social networks, Facebooks, this and that, it was kind of easy for me to get up and running with Sonar. So for someone who's like, is this going to be worth my time? What are the networks that Sonar works with best?
Yeah, so Sonar, right now, when we launched 2 months ago, and it's Foursquare, Facebook, and Twitter. But I would say one of the strengths of Sonar is that, unlike other apps in this space, it's not like it doesn't only rely on other people using Sonar. It leverages those networks so that when you open it, it feels like there's other millions of people using it. Mm-hmm. And I guess one of the other best things about it is that it works in the background. So let's say you're really into Foursquare, right? And that's like your check-in app of choice. Sonar is kind of a perfect complement to that. So you can go and check in somewhere on Foursquare, and then in the background, we'll do the analysis. We'll look at everyone there, see if there's anyone there worth connecting with, and then shoot you a push notification. So it'd be like, hey, Sarah, a friend of your friend, Amber, is also here right now. Like, maybe you guys would like to connect. Maybe you went to college together, or maybe that person is also in the tech industry.
So the idea is that, so I'm checked into our TWiT Brickhouse Studios. This is our official Foursquare check-in right now. Now, nobody's here, which is funny because Mondays are kind of quiet around here anyway, and there was actually a party here last night, so a lot of people are going to be walking in late, looking bedraggled. But if they were, I would say that they were here. But if somebody that I wasn't connected to on Sonar was here, that is a friend of mine through Facebook, for example, Sonar would attempt to connect me to that person, correct?
Exactly. So I guess I would have to say I saw what you guys were saying last time. Sonar does work best in places where lots of people are hanging out. So conferences or events or parks. So I don't know if this works for you guys. Here, I'll see if this works.
Yeah, looks pretty good.
Maybe. So this is Bryant Park, and I can't tell if you can see this. Probably not. But right now, just someone who's a couple blocks away from where I'm taking this interview right now at Bryant Park.
That's Bryant Park in New York, which is a big public area, correct?
Yeah, one of the biggest, right? And so, like, when I'm going to sort of eat my lunch, let's say, and I go take it out to the park, I can pop open Sonar, and Sonar will just sort of let me know, oh, here's someone here who is a friend of a friend, and they happen to be a back-end engineer, which is something we're looking to hire right now. So with one click, I could shoot that person a message and be like, hey, we're also, we share friends, but maybe even more importantly, we're looking to hire someone who fits your description. You want to swing over and share this? I'll buy you a milkshake at Shake Shack, for example.
Do you think it can get creepy at all? Like, in the sense that if you're not on Sonar and someone reaches out who has seen you because they are using the app and they reach out maybe via Twitter, Facebook, or whatever it might be, do you think there is that creepy element, or is there a way for people to still have some privacy? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I would say the big difference between Sonar and lots of other these sort of proximity-based networks or proximity-based, dating apps and things like that is that on Sonar, we're not introducing you to strangers. We're introducing you to friends of friends. So it's no creepier than, say, at a house party, right? When you'll walk up and talk to the person by the food table and say, hey, how are you, right? Because you know that person's a friend of a friend. And that's basically the experience that Sonar is recreating. It's just that could happen anywhere, and does happen everywhere. You just don't know it.
Well, I would think something like, you used conference as an example, something like a conference, especially a tech conference. And I know that Sonar, you were the winners, I think, of the hackathon at the first TechCrunch Disrupt. Isn't that right?
We were runners up at TechCrunch Disrupt in May.
Okay, so it was this year's TechCrunch Disrupt. Okay, so that's where I initially had heard about Sonar. But so that kind of a conference, for example, it's full of people who might not know each other directly, but it's really possible that they've got a friend in common, if not 3 or 4. So it seems like, or maybe even a music venue where there are a lot of people who, when you're a real music head, you tend to really like talking about things that you're passionate about with somebody, and you might not have to know them that well. I mean, maybe you just need a little bit of an introduction. So maybe it's the sweet spot is not necessarily just events, but places where you know that people already are going into it with a variety of things in common.
Yeah, so I think that what you're getting at right now, which is that perhaps not everyone feels comfortable, tweeting at someone that they don't know. Is that, I think I'm sort of getting that, and I completely agree. I mean, from when we first launched, we put out something that the best part about it was that it was actually working, in the sense that if you do a Twitter search for @SonarMe, you will see people connecting right now. But, maybe such a direct frontal approach is not for everyone. So actually what we're building now is a way that makes it easier to leverage those connections that you have in common to get in touch with someone that you might want to.
And what's your target demographic?
I hear you on that. And
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, no, I just to pick up on that point a little bit, I'm just curious about your kind of target demographic, because when I think about it, I think about people who I know who maybe are in their late teens or early 20s who would love something like this. Is that kind of the audience you're going after? Thinking maybe an older audience, people in their 40s, 50s might not, this might not appeal to them as much?
Yeah, I think it definitely works for anyone, that's used to sort of reaching out and connecting with people through sort of social media channels to start. But where I think it ultimately ends up is anyone that wants to be visible. So, an example would be when you're sort of the cool guy at the party, or you're the venture capitalist, or you're the reporter, right? Like, you have lots of people coming up to you and trying to connect with you, right? But if you're the guy from Austin, Texas, that just moved to New York, 1 year ago, right? And you're trying to sort of break into the New York tech scene, you have to start every single conversation. And that can just be really daunting, right? So what Sonar is, delivering is a platform where maybe you don't know everyone at the party, but you can just use Sonar as a platform to sort of tell people you're here, and then receive sort of people commenting and coming up to you. So the whole goal is not that you have to use Sonar as, the tool that you have to reach out all the time. It's just a more passive way of letting other people know you're here, and then letting conversations evolve.
So, Brett, I do have to ask you one thing, and maybe this has been fixed since the last time it happened to me, but so, for example, I have a Foursquare venue for my home. My boyfriend and I both, we swap mayorships back and forth. It's, it's kind of this running competition that we have. And the other day, I had my Sonar notifications turned on, and I checked in, and obviously my boyfriend and I are familiar with each other. We know each other. That's why we live together. And Sonar told me, a friend of your Facebook friend, so-and-so, is here at this venue. You might know each other. And we got a good laugh, and I took a screen capture of it. But how is Sonar going to keep from that sort of thing happening, where people say, yeah, duh, Sonar, Captain Obvious. Obviously, I know the person already because we're connected on other social networks, just maybe not Sonar.
I think that is a totally valid complaint, and that was sort of a pernicious bug that we launched with. We sort of had to cram everything to get it out by TechCrunch Disrupt. That should be fixed now. So our algorithm was a little too precise. We were trying to put you in touch with the most relevant person to you at the venue, which in often cases turned out to be the person you were with. So, what we're building actually sort of longer term is we're sort of going to be able to bridge and make connections over networks. So let's say you wanted to get in touch with someone who is a LinkedIn connection of your Facebook friend. Right now you'd have, kind of no way of knowing that, right? Because all networks sort of dead end at the end of their network, but Sonar is kind of a bridge across those. So not only should we not tell you that you're connected to someone that's already connected to you on the same network, we should eventually be able to tell you connections you have that your network doesn't even know.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. So kinks you're aware of that you're working out. In general, I think Sonar is great. I think that, yeah, as Amber mentioned, for some people, and some of the people who are watching the show live in our chat room were saying, I just don't know if I would want to use this. Is this the right service for me? And I think with location services, you get that a lot anyway. But for people who are, when I say social, that sounds silly, but I mean who are honestly social and don't mind coming up to somebody and saying, listen, I sent you that message. We know a couple people. We might have a lot in common here. Or maybe there's a job I'd like to inquire about, that sort of thing. This seems like the perfect tool, but you've got to have that personality where it's a tool that you want to use rather than something that is going to embarrass you. Or, I guess you just can't be too shy.
That
makes
sense. For now, I completely agree, and that's something we're definitely... The goal is that for everyone, one day you can just open up Sonar, press a button, and then meet cool people. So I think that that's something we're definitely working toward. And for now, I mean, it's mostly, recruiters and publicists and reporters and entrepreneurs looking for venture capital. All are probably, in our target. But I'd like to expand it to help, basically anyone, even the shy people, make it easier to create a connection with someone.
What about police? I could see police liking this. They're looking for people in a certain neighborhood and they could see everybody who checks in. I'm sort of half joking, but you could see it. It could be interesting for that group of people as well. I'm sure you don't want to promote that, of course. Just silence. That's okay.
It's like audio issues. Yeah, audio issues. What do you think, Brett? I mean, could police enforcement? I guess if you're really somebody who doesn't want to be tracked down, like a criminal, maybe you shouldn't be connected to that many folks on Foursquare and Facebook and Twitter and Sonar.
Well, I mean, we're only using publicly available information, so you're not showing up on Sonar unless you want to.
Right.
So I don't know what type of criminals would be broadcasting their location on the internet.
I hang out with some pretty shady
not using
people.
Our service. And I guess that's sort of the second thing is that we actually think that real identity sort of, it's creepy if you get a message from, Brett1211 that says like, hey, I'd love to grab a coffee sometime. But if you get a message from Brett Martin, who's a real person with, thousands of Facebook and Twitter friends and connections and common ones to boot, like that's a lot less weird. So I guess our sort of stance on that, like on privacy, is that it's very important, and we're trying to, use reputation systems to make things even safer.
Well, Brett Martin, it was really good talking to you, the co-founder and CEO of Sonar. And it sounds like you guys have a lot of good stuff coming down the pipeline for anybody who's interested in the app. Get it now so that when there's a big update, you can say, I knew it when.
Thank you so much, ladies. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on the show. Thank you.
So, Amber, it's always funny when we're showing off apps like this. For example, I was trying to follow along with some of the stuff that Brett was talking about, playing around with Sonar here on my iPad, the iPhone app. But Petaluma is always a challenge because there aren't that many people using location-based apps in this particular area as there would be in more of a metropolitan area. I mean, plenty of people are in Petaluma using Foursquare and the like, but for show and tell purposes, of course, during this interview, it's like, it's kind of early. No one's really at the TWiT brick house right now. So,
it's tough. And you know what?
Hopefully you got the idea.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's an interesting app, and I think it's one of those things that I would probably actually use, but I don't know if I would participate, if that makes sense. Like, I would be almost like just curious about who was around me. I don't know how often I would go up to people and start chatting with them, but it would be fun to kind of see if people had similar interests, like you said, or have gone to the same school as me. In that case, maybe I would go up and say hi. So I do think it's interesting. I just... more and more with some of these services, I love them, but I just start thinking about privacy. We look at what happened in London with the riots and how police have tracked people down who maybe have shared stuff on Facebook, or other people have posted stuff. So I think the privacy conversation, we just can't totally leave it out, even though I overshare all the time.
Yes.
But I just think it's a something that we should always keep in mind. We don't want to get to a situation a few years down the road where we've just, forgotten about our privacy completely and just don't care about anything, because I think it could come back to haunt us in some interesting ways. Nonetheless, I think it's kind of neat.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually, there was somebody who actually tweeted me the other day, or I don't know how he got a hold of me. I think it was a tweet, and said, listen, Sarah, you're sharing too much about where you go all the time. No good can come of this. Eventually it's going to catch up with you. And at first I sort of laughed and said, oh, well, I've been doing this a long time. But then that really is a good point. I mean, and that's something that I think we should all remind ourselves of, even if we're very enthusiastic about these sorts of apps, is just using them in smart ways. And another thing I was thinking, I should have mentioned it while Brett was still with us, but it also really requires you to choose your friend connections wisely, because somebody who has, I don't know, who's trying to have as many Foursquare friends as possible, really without knowing all these people. I mean, sometimes people just like collecting friends. It's like a game to them. Is that going to be the kind of person that you want a bunch of suggestions from? That's going to skew the whole graph in a weird way, because the person that you have in common, you might really not, that might not actually be a legitimate connection that would be anything meaningful for two people, with one person in common. So there's a lot of stuff to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot. And I'd be curious, too, and I was going to ask him, but just in terms of advertisers, if they have any interesting things planned on that front. Because just as far as making revenue from apps like this, it's a cool idea, but I just wonder how they plan to make money. And I think with location, there are actually some really amazing ways for marketers to get involved and do some really fun stuff, and stuff that's rewarding to a certain audience that's in a certain location. So, yeah, it's a fun chat to have, of course.
Quick reminder that we record the Social Hour live on Mondays. We always try to do our very best to start at 11 a.m. Pacific. That's 2 p.m. Eastern. Today we were a little late. TWiT had a big party last night, so we're all just kind of still trying to get everything in order. But we're always live at 11, so you can watch some of our pre-show, and that's sometimes where the good stuff happens.
Oh, that's
Amber
the best stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. I sneeze a lot during the pre-show. You should be ready to record.
That's true, and people have started now to. It's become a bit of a. It's like a little the Social Hour meme where people have found many instances of Amber sneezing, not just on this show. She's just a sneezer in general, and are now sending them to us, and I am collecting them all.
It's great.
To use as blackmail one day when Amber upsets me, which is probably going to be never. But if you're not able to watch live, if you're watching this afterwards, that's great. Or even if you're listening, we have audio feeds as well. twit.tv/TSH. That's our mothership of where all of our shows live. You can watch and listen to all of our show archives. This is the 22nd episode, so you've got all sorts of archives. If you want to catch up on, maybe those 5 weeks that you missed earlier in the year, that's the place to do it. You can subscribe through iTunes, a variety of ways. We try to make it as easy as possible for you to consume the show. We have a YouTube channel as well. You can just go to the TWiT channel over at YouTube and watch the show. Of course, every episode has a show notes section, so if you just click on show notes, pretty much everything we talk about will be linked to in this area. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this in a while, but this is kind of a crowdsourced effort. If there's ever anything that we've mentioned that for whatever reason you don't see in the show notes, you can add it in. It's like a Wikipedia entry. You just sign up. It's totally free. It's easy to do. You just create a little account, and then you can sort of be part of the team. But we do our best to make sure that you go there and get the information that you want. So that's our website, twit.tv/TSH. And of course, you can email us at thesocialhour@twit.tv. By the way, Amber, we're going to read a few of them a little bit later in the show.
I know.
We got quite a response about whether or not QR codes are rad or fad.
I'm still sifting through some of the tweets that were sent out, and I've seen some of the emails. So some really neat uses of QR technology. So we'll talk about that, like you mentioned, later in the show. But first up, of course, we have our first sponsor in today's show, Squarespace.
That's right. Squarespace is our sponsor. And what's funny too is a little bit later in the show, there's actually somebody who wrote in. He wanted some advice from Amber and I, but he does something Squarespace related. It's really cool. Before we get to that, we just want to thank Squarespace for being our first sponsor. If you're not familiar with Squarespace, it's the easiest way to create and manage a really high quality website or blog. And when I say high quality, I mean it looks beautiful and it works well. I mean, the front end is great, but the back end is really what's the most important part. I'm a Squarespace user, and I can't say enough about how easy it is to put something together, a really nice site, whether you're a writer, whether you're a photographer, whether you're neither of those things, but you just want to have a main place where you can have a Twitter widget. If you're taking regular pictures, to be able to let people, friends or family, know that you've updated something in your life. Lots of templates that Squarespace has at the ready just to help you get started. I mean, you can be up and running in no time at all. But if you're a designer, if you've got some skill or you want to play around, that's also extremely possible within Squarespace. And they do it. They give you a lot of templates that you can start off with and then go nuts creating a really customized site. If you go to squarespace.com and click on the examples page, it'll give you a really good idea of how people are using Squarespace, and it really runs the gamut. I mean, there are design blogs, there are video podcast blogs. Some of our friends over at Revision 3 use Squarespace, and they just go ahead and embed their most recent video right there, and then they have a section for notes and the like. Tom and Veronica use Squarespace for their Sword and Laser audio book club. And again, I use it for my main blog, and I don't even blog that much, but I have enough widgets so that I feel like when someone goes to my blog over at Squarespace, there's still a lot of updating going on because I'm very active online, and it's nice to be able to funnel it all into one place. They also have really good tech support. So if you're the kind of person who says, hey, listen, I like this idea, but I simply don't have time. When I get stuck, I get frustrated, I abandon projects. The people at Squarespace can help you get going because I've been there a variety of times. You just add in there's a nice little help ticket sort of system that they've got going on. They've always been very quick to get back to you with the right information. So I use Squarespace. I love them. They've always been very good to us at TWiT. And if you are a fan and if you want to go ahead and sign up, if you go to squarespace.com, offer code SOCIALHOUR8. The 8 refers to the fact that we're in August and it's the 8th month of the year. So SOCIALHOUR8, all one word. You can try out Squarespace for a couple of weeks. See if it's got kind of the vibe that you're looking for. That's great. Once you decide that you want to keep going, you'll get 10% off the first 6 months of your account. Their pricing is really reasonable, but of course everybody likes a discount. So for fans of the Social Hour, SOCIALHOUR8. And again, that's 10% off 6 months of your account. Gotta love Squarespace. We thank them so much for supporting us. Now, Amber, there was some big news last week, and it's like this group messaging phenomenon. It's like it started, I guess we could say, within the last year. I mean, obviously, group messaging has been around longer than a year, but it's really started to sweep the app market by storm over the last year. We talked about Facebook Messenger, which was the old Beluga team, which is now kind of the Facebook's integration. Obviously, Google Plus is trying to get into the game with what are they? They're not called Hangouts. They're called Huddles. Yes, Huddles. Which Huddles. I still haven't quite gotten into that, but Google Plus is doing their best. Thank you, Chad. He said Huddles, and now Skype has bought a group messaging app called GroupMe for $85 million.
I know, quite the price tag for that particular app. Although, as you know, it's been one of the more popular apps out there for group messaging. I just see this space continuing to explode. And I think of, again, when I mentioned before, kind of a younger generation who may like an app like Sonar, they're also kind of a big group of people who are using group messaging services and applications. So it'll be interesting to see how, what Skype kind of plans for this and how it grows and within the organization. So $85 million, though, pretty sweet deal for GroupMe. Indeed, especially since, I mean, they've taken some funding money, but it looks, for the two founders of GroupMe, it looks like it was a pretty good deal for them. I have GroupMe up and running on my iPad. Again, this is an iPhone app, although it's worth noting that, we talk about iPhone apps all the time, or I feel like I do, obviously, because I also do an iOS show. But GroupMe works on iOS, Android, BlackBerry, and even Windows Phone 7. So, that
is somewhat unusual for an app that's as young as it is. When you look at it, though, I've been trying to figure out, okay, so what makes this sort of the obvious Skype acquisition choice? And here's my home. These are just obviously some messages that I have going. This is just a private message going back and forth between MG and I, so it works very much like a chat. You know, I embedded a picture of him eating a hamburger just for no reason. We were kind of just testing out the app. But this could also apply to a big group of people. My Vegas group that I hung out with over the weekend. Hopefully nothing is okay. That's all G-rated stuff. We were all talking to each other via GroupMe all weekend. We were also using Facebook Messenger also. You know, you've got the map feature where wherever everyone is on a map that are talking to each other in a group setting. I assume that, well, see, now I've moved, so I'm no longer in Nevada anymore, but I would have been the last time that I had sent the message. We've all moved back to California now, so. And it lets you know who the members are in the group and so on. What's also kind of nice about GroupMe is they have a number that's associated, a phone number that's associated with a group chat. So if I wanted to maybe like conference call all of those people who were in my Vegas GroupMe group, there would be a number associated with that. So GroupMe is obviously planning to take it beyond, oh, let's all just, you know, say funny things to each other in a group. But I still wonder how it will integrate with Skype. I mean, I guess Skype can just, if this was another layer on top of Skype, Skype could be thought of as more than just video conferencing, which is, I think, what a lot of people associate it with.
Well, yeah, there's a really good post up on Fast Company right now and talking about GroupMe. And I think the fact that Skype is in the headline as far as Skype acquiring GroupMe is kind of throwing people a little bit. And what this article touches on is the fact that obviously Skype is owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft wants to get into the mobile world even further. And so this gives them kind of a leg up. And then they have all the other platforms like Windows Mobile, and of course Xbox. So within that Microsoft world, and then of course with Skype as part of that, you can see some really interesting opportunities for GroupMe and how they can, you know, just kind of get a leg up in group messaging without having to build their own technology.
Another thing that GroupMe also has, and this really sets them apart, in my opinion, from the other group messaging services. And by the way, I mean, group messaging services they're getting a lot of buzz right now because there's also this move away from SMS texting. In fact, AT&T announced last week that they're going to start getting rid of their limited SMS plans. You're either going to be charged per text, or you have to buy an unlimited plan, which for someone like me, I don't use the AT&T anymore, but for someone like me, I don't like unlimited plans because I don't text that much and I like to save a little bit of money. So it's almost as if the carriers realize that people have other options. So they're going to either try to get as much money out of you, they have to worry about this too, but GroupMe also has what they call featured groups. So there's like the Kesha group. So if I go ahead and say, okay, well, what's the Kesha group all about? I can create a group. It's almost like they're suggesting creating a group that's all about Kesha's music, and I would be able to connect to other people who are also big fans of hers, and I don't know, talk about upcoming concerts or songs, that sort of thing. This to me is not all that compelling, but I can see where if it was an artist that I really wanted to follow, or a service that I really wanted to discuss with other people, that could be pretty meaningful, and that obviously brings in the idea of GroupMe making a little bit of money, because if they partner up with management companies and the like, then this might be an interesting revenue stream for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's lots of sort of use case scenarios for this app, and how there are so many different communities that they can really hit hard. So, you know, hopefully, you know, again, just congratulations to the folks at GroupMe. I'm sure they're having a pretty good start to the week. Sarah, another social media story that I wanted to mention, and of course, because I was away this weekend, I missed a lot of stuff that was happening in the internet world. And as painful as that was, I think I'm getting caught up fairly quickly. I I noticed that Google Plus has launched verified accounts. So just like Twitter did years ago, where they have the little check mark and the symbol besides your username, Google Plus is doing the same thing for public figures and celebrities, sports stars, people who have some type of public presence. It's still a little bit unclear. I don't know if you know more, Sarah, about how someone can apply to get a verified account, because it seems like they're just giving them away. I think my account is verified now because it has a little check mark beside it, but that's about all I know in terms of how they're doing it.
Well, let me look at mine, because I didn't even think to check if my account was verified because I've done nothing about it. Okay, it is. There's a little check mark besides my name too. So I'm a verified name, even though there are a lot of Sarah Lanes. So all the other Sarah Lanes on Google Plus, I'm sorry in advance. I can't help it. It's just what I was named when I was born. But this, Amber, I think this is, I don't know. I think this is a good idea because, for example, Edward Norton, someone named Edward Norton, who happens to be an actor who I admire very much, friended me on Google+. Edward Norton, and the actor, and I happen to have a couple of common friends. So my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, Edward Norton, who I love, the actor, wants to be my friend on Google Plus because he knows that I'm friends with the same guy that he's friends with. Well, it turned out not to. It was just a fake account. It was like a stupid account of somebody who had his it wasn't like another person named Edward Norton. It was someone impersonating him. That sort of thing would help to get rid of a lot of that stuff, even if there was some confusion. I mean, obviously those accounts are supposed to be marked as impersonation and banned. But if there was just some confusion as to which Sarah Lane you were talking to, this would help that out. Although Twitter has already abandoned this, the verified names on Twitter. I mean, I think that people who have verified names continue to have them, but they're not going through the trouble of verifying anybody anymore. I know this because I thought, well, maybe I should be verified. I'm a real person too. And they said, we're not really doing that anymore. So I'm not sure why Twitter decided it wasn't worth their time. And I think it gets into a little bit of a gray area as far as if people do have the same names and Google Plus wants so much emphasis on actually using your real name. I mean, what if you have a really common name and you're much better off with a pseudonym that sets you apart from all the other Sally Joneses? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, I'm sure the issue that Twitter has, part of it must just be complete overload with people who are requesting to be verified. Because you can imagine as that network has grown so big, it's just becoming increasingly more difficult to kind of make sure people are legitimate and who they say they are as well. So I wonder if it just becomes almost a bandwidth issue where the Twitter team just can't keep up with all the people requesting verification. I thought it was kind of neat, though, and neat, I don't know if that's a positive thing or not, but with Google Plus, how they made the verification check mark. It's just a gray little check mark. It's not as obnoxious and kind of in your face as Twitter. Yeah. So I don't know if there was a reason for that, but it's definitely more subtle. Most people I've seen so far who are kind of in my network, a lot of them seem to have been verified already. So we'll see.
It's probably good for, especially people who are new to Google Plus and just figuring out who are the right people to try to connect with. And you see that verification and you already feel a little bit more comfortable that the people working at Google Plus almost stand behind this person. I mean, it's not like an endorsement, everything Sarah says is now going to be great, but a little something like, yeah, she's gone through that first layer of she's who she says she is, and this is a legitimate thing, and we're okay with it. So I guess it's a little bit of a peace of mind thing as well.
Yeah, I think so. So, Sarah, in the interest of time, do you want to jump ahead to our social tip?
Yes, let's do that. While you are mentioning it, I'm going to pull it up again on my iPad because it has such a good iPad app.
Oh, yes. So I know you are a big fan of Stumble Upon. You've talked about it before on the show. And I believe that it's actually a Canadian company and has been around for a really long time. I used to use it in its early web days where you would essentially just kind of stumble through and find interesting websites that it would serve up based on your interests. And this report just came out a couple of days ago that Stumble Upon now drives more than 50% of social media traffic. Now, I had to read this headline a couple of times, Sarah, because I thought this must be wrong. wrong. This can't be possible. And it looks like this is true based on data from a company called StatCounter, saying that it's one of the dominant sources of traffic among the world's top social media websites. So this is how people are getting to a lot of different interesting sites in the social space. So I think we'll be hearing a lot more about StumbleUpon in the weeks and months to come. So the social tip this week, more or less, is to pay attention, sign up, start using.
Absolutely. I've been using StumbleUpon. I have been using it for years. And Amber, you're right. It is a Canadian company. Garrett Camp, who started the company, is from Canada, although he lives in the Bay Area now. But I kind of got. It wasn't that I forgot about StumbleUpon, but I got distracted by many other networks that I had joined in the last couple of years. But they have an iPad app that they have had one for a while, but they really reimagined it in the last, maybe about a month ago. And it's beautiful. And it's designed for the iPad, so it actually has, it focuses on things that are visual and that work well on the iPad. So I won't go too much into that because, I mean, this isn't an iPad show. We have a different show for that. But the idea is that you look around online, and sometimes you don't know where to start, and I don't know what I want to do. And StumbleUpon is really great for those moments where you want to be online, but you don't really have a destination in mind. You don't really know what you want to do. It's almost like flipping channels, but you don't want junk either. It's like a smart channel flipper. So I said that I was interested in comedies and movies, so StumbleUpon gave me something from Funny or Die, and it's wrapped in StumbleUpon's network itself, so that if I say, okay, Cuban gynecologist, I don't know. So let's say I'm like, this is not what I want to do. So I go ahead and thumbs down it. Now StumbleUpon is that much smarter. So the next time it offers up something that it thinks is going to be in the right genre that at least I started with, there's a better chance that I'm going to like it. So for anybody who's not familiar with StumbleUpon, again, this is an iPad app, but the website works the same way. But apparently, StumbleUpon is... I mean, it's just, and people have been saying this pretty much since they launched their toolbar that allowed you to quickly share with Twitter, Facebook friends, that sort of thing, something that you had found on StumbleUpon. People have said, and these are people who are behind the sites that get huge bumps in traffic, that StumbleUpon far and wide has sent them more refers than any other network. And I'm not sure what's in their special sauce, but it definitely means that, they're one to watch.
Well, I think we should try to get them to come on the show. It seems like a perfect opportunity before they get even bigger than they are now, Sarah. It reminds you a little bit of Pandora in some ways, just as far as it getting smarter as time goes on, because that's exactly what it does. So I'm glad that I stumbled across this link, pardon the pun there, but because I used to use the tool all the time, the little toolbar, and I've kind of left it for a little bit, but I'm going to start digging around again.
Yeah, it's funny. I always say, whenever I say StumbleUpon, I mean, they had a genius name idea because it's something that is in our vernacular. You'll say, oh, I stumbled upon this really great article. You should read it, Amber, that sort of thing. And now every time I say that, I go, well, I don't mean stumble upon the service. And sometimes I do. But they made it very easy to...
It's okay, Sarah.
I use puns regularly.
I understand what you're saying. I made s'mores this weekend, and I can't tell you how many times I kept saying to everybody around the campfire, hey, do you want some more s'mores? I can't even say it now. And for some reason, it would just seemed hilarious. So clearly, we both need to get out more.
No, it's a s'more joke. I'd be guilty of the same thing.
It never got old.
We did get an email that actually kind of turned into something that I think is a good spotlight for this week, because it's a service that seems really great, but that I was unfamiliar with until recently. David wrote us and said, what do you think of the co-working trend? Might be an interesting topic for the social hour. I stumbled across a site, that's what he says, I'm reading it verbatim, stumbled across a site called Loosecubes.com, so that's LOOSECUBES.com. Sort of an Airbnb for workspaces. It's probably been around for a long time, but I just found it. It led me to some cool co-working facilities in Denver, which prompted this email as a topic suggestion. I do independent consulting. On occasion, though, it'd be cool to be in a setting with a group of people. I totally understand that, and I'm very familiar with the idea of co-working. For anybody who wasn't, the idea is let's say you don't go to an office every day, but you're interested in going into an office setting. Here, Chad, if you take my computer, if you probably, you're using like a Petaluma zip, which is sometimes a little bit harder. Again, Petaluma's a smaller town, less co-working going on. But if I just put in, that was like a main address in San Francisco, what Loosecubes wants to do is join people who are looking for a space to work in that kind of gives them not just like a feeling of being in an office, but kind of that buzz of having people around you who are also being creative and getting things done. And maybe your home office doesn't have like a color printer, or there's certain things that you need in an office setting that someone who has an extra desk would be happy to provide you for a fee. Sometimes co-working spaces have monthly fees, and it's kind of like an all-inclusive thing, and even stock their kitchen and that sort of thing. And then other co-working spaces will let you drop in for free, or at least for a limited time, or it's like $25 a day type of a thing. And imagine if TaskRabbit headquarters, for example, in the Soma area of San Francisco, they are interested in having people come in to work there for $25 a day. So if I go to learn a little bit more about them, I see exactly where they are on a map. There's some nice photographs of what their space looks like. Looks like a really nice space. I love the logo. There is a ping pong leaderboard, so that's good. There's some ping pong games to blow off some steam, maybe after lunch type of a thing. You got sort of a conference area, an area to chill out. So you get an idea of, okay, this might be worth $25 to get out of my house. If I don't have, the right extra bedroom for an office setup type of thing, or if I just don't want to be alone, or my neighbors are doing construction and I need a place to work and I don't have an office to go to. I love this idea.
Very cool. I love the site. I've just been digging around, and I just did a search for Toronto, where I'm based, and found there are some great shared spaces that you can get for as little as $100 a month. Some of them cost a little more, a couple $100. But what an awesome way! And this trend has been going on for a while, to be able to actually have sort of a physical office space, but not actually rake up traditional rent charges. That can be a lot, especially in an urban area. So this is really fun. A really useful site. So. Thanks so much. What's his name? David, I think, for sending us that site.
Yeah,
I'm
it was
sure
David.
A lot of people find it handy.
I know. Cheers to you, David. You definitely found something that I hadn't heard of before. Loosecubes.com. So if you want to see if there's a space like this, if this co-working seems like something that you'd be interested in, I know a lot of people who do it regularly. So for the right person, and it's not just freelance people, but I think that's obviously that makes a lot of sense, because you sort of work anywhere. Some of these offices also, one of the categories that Loosecubes wants somebody who's offering up a space to check out is, are they dog friendly or not? Now, a lot of people have dogs these days, and some offices are dog friendly. TWiT is, although Tom and Eileen's dogs haven't been here in a while, but they certainly were over at the cottage all the time. Maybe I don't know, maybe we're not quite ready for dogs yet here, but that's meaningful to a lot of people. And as we all know, very few cafes want dogs hanging out in there. So even if you have a favorite cafe, maybe you do better over at TaskRabbit, where they'll let you bring your lab, who can sleep at your feet and you don't have to feel like you have to leave them.
And even business networking opportunities, right? I know a lot of people who have worked in these type of spaces, and they end up getting more business and kind of growing their own networks just based on sitting around a bunch of people who may be in similar environments as far as the type of work that they do. So it's very cool. Now, Sarah, we have a lot of feedback about this, the coolest QR codes around, and do they make sense? We brought this up last week as our Rad or Fad segment, because I was just feeling a little sick of QR codes and thinking, I don't know, is this going to last? Well, we certainly heard, didn't we, Sarah?
We got so much feedback. Both Amber and I, with a lot of tweets directed towards us, and it's interesting because I didn't know. I mean, I feel like everybody has an opinion. Either you don't really care about QR codes, or you think that they're great, or you don't think that they're great, but we got probably more feedback about this particular Rad or Fad than we have about any of the other ones in the past. And I thought that we could at least just go through a few of your responses. We won't be able to read all of them, but Drew said, I used to work in a cinema, and I found the use of QR codes on movie posters a really great idea for quick access to a trailer. That is something I hadn't thought of. That is a good idea. I would use that.
And our next one is from Sean Francis. I'll try to summarize this. He was saying that he says that QR codes make great sense. He frequents a place called Scotty's Brew House in Indianapolis. I guess the drink coaster has a QR code on it and takes you to a mobile-ready beer menu. Now, I know a lot of people who would love this. So he said this was kind of interesting because you don't have all those menus on the table that you're always knocking over, and they're stored in plastic. So this is a way to get an up-to-date list, so you can tell what's available at that very moment, because you don't have to depend on people printing up new menus. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like a space saver, and then also a way for whoever's going to take your order, so they don't have to list the 25 beers that they have on tap every time somebody walks in. So I mean, you still have to talk to somebody to place your order, but it just takes a step out of the process of trying to figure out what is on offer, I guess.
And there's the incentive there, right, Sarah? I think that's where QR codes make sense. There has to be incentive for users. And the incentive here is for people who love beer. I know my fiance, Chris, if there was a QR code with the list of the daily beers on it, he would be pulling out his QR code reader and using it immediately. Totally. So kind of neat.
We got another note of feedback from Jamie, who said the major entry issues with QR codes that will lead eventually to their demise and enter into fad status is the action of having to scan them with a camera, dependency on camera lens quality, focus, size and clarity of the image, etc., which I definitely agree with. Jamie says, with NFC, the implementation of a smart tag removes any barrier to entry outside of the implementation of the technology in smartphones, but based on what we know that's out in smartphone land and what we know is coming to NFC, I think that'll be the successor. I think Jamie's probably right. I mean, QR code seems to be the sort of the first step into the idea of scanning things in general.
Yeah, very interesting. And Sean says he thinks that QR codes are in fact rad, but he thinks they're almost like a stopgap measure. He talks about Google Goggles, how it allows you to take a picture of a certain ad, and then the entire ad is the QR code. And he thinks that this is the way that we are heading with QR codes down the road. So lots of great feedback on that topic, and I think I'm opening up my mind, Sarah.
I'm glad, Amber. We also got a tweet from Scott Brown 111, I guess that's how you say your name, and he actually sent us a QR code that he made of his qualifications. He's a programmer, and so this is his QR code that he just has hanging in his car window. He's an engineer. He says, these are my qualifications, and if you're interested enough to scan my QR code, it'll take you to my resume with a little bit more information. I thought that was really good.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah. You have to get creative, I guess, with QR codes. It's not that easy, Sarah. I guess that's the moral of this particular social media story.
There's actually, last week I had mentioned briefly that sometimes QR codes confuse me a little bit. Like, there is a Jews for Jesus meeting house headquarters near where I live, and they had a QR code on their front door, and I was just like, that's weird, and I just didn't think to go scan it. And a friend of mine who watches the show, hi, Matt. He scanned it and sent me a screen grab of what you see when you actually scan that QR code to see what's on the other side. It was like, I think it was a video that tells you more about their organization. He just sent me a screen grab, so I didn't actually watch the video, but I thought, well, there you go. See, I'm just here talking about how I wonder what it all means, and he was like, well, I just walked up to the front door and I scanned it, so this is what it means, Sarah. So I thought that was kind of funny. QR codes, there's definitely uses for them. We also got an email from someone who said that he had been at a modern art gallery recently. I think it was in Australia somewhere. And there were QR codes to find out more about artists. And he said it was great because there was all this great stuff, but I just wasn't going to go through the trouble of writing down these somewhat obscure, at least to him, artist names. And this just gave me a bunch of information that I could look up later. That seems like also a good, case use for things like this.
That makes sense. I like that. Sarah, it looks like we have a video this week, a social media question.
Yes, we do. Nathan, take it away.
Hey, Amber and Sarah. This is Nathan from the middle of nowhere, Indiana. Early this year, I started a website called squarecoach.com, and it's turned out to be pretty successful. It got me a lot of web design jobs. Problem is, now I don't have time to update the website. Is it better to only post something occasionally and only check in on Twitter and Facebook occasionally? Or is it better to find somebody to help out and do some of the posts and keep the conversation going on social media? Thanks.
So, Amber, I think last week, especially with Scott Stratton of Unmarketing as our guest, Scott I think I know what Scott would have said is like, no, don't have other people doing your work for you. You know, you're either in or you're out. But I did go to Nathan's website, which is squarecoach.com. If you missed it in the video, I actually have it up on my screen. It's funny because it's a learn how to use Squarespace service. Honestly, it's very coincidental. I had never heard of it before, which is kind of funny. And you know, he says not affiliated with Squarespace, but it's like about finding people who can, I don't know, give you design tips and tutorials and just kind of like meet other people who are in this network. So the more I looked at this, the more I thought, well, I don't know. I mean, this doesn't seem like really the kind of thing where I'd say, no, you've got to keep up on this as an individual. You wouldn't want to have help from other people because that's inauthentic, because it seems more like a community type of site than something really personal. So it might not be the worst idea in the world to have somebody with similar interests help keep the site up if you can't get to it on a daily basis.
I really don't think it's realistic for most businesses that are trying to grow to have one of the key people in the business managing social media accounts if there just isn't time. Because there's lots of examples of people in the social media space who have been hired to manage Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and many other services who do a really great job of kind of relaying that authentic voice. You know, they're transparent about who they are. They don't try to be someone else. But I think you can do it in a way that can be very helpful. I think there's even great examples of, you know, younger people who've been hired. Maybe someone's in school, or, you know, there are a lot of professionals in my neighborhood who just manage social media services for some of the community business, some of the small businesses. And they spend time within these businesses. They spend time with the managers. So I would say that it's better to hire someone to manage it, make sure that that's transparent, that it's not you who's updating the account, just to keep the conversation flowing, because it could generate more business for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love this idea, Nathan. I mean, I hope that you can keep Square Coach going. I see where it becomes this beast, because it's a big topic, and yeah, like Amber said, there are definitely ways to have help, especially if you want to be taken seriously and make sure that people come back knowing that there's going to be new content. All right, Amber, before we move on to Rad or Fad and thank our second sponsor, I just want to make sure that everyone knows how to get a hold of us, because we have a few different ways to get a hold of us. Again, like I mentioned earlier in the show, thesocialhour@twit.tv. That's our main email address. We check it regularly. Send something there, and we'll be sure to read it, even if we can't get to it on the show. You can also leave us a voicemail. The number is 2626-SOCIAL. 2626-SOCIAL, or record a video like Nathan did and upload it. Send us the link to where we can view it. Nathan was also nice enough in the email that he sent us to say it's 30 seconds or less, which is great. Thank you so much, because that time just helps us roll in videos a lot more easily into the confines of our show. But you've got lots of ways to get a hold of us. Of course, you can always tweet us as well. Amber and I are on Twitter all the time, as you know, so we don't miss a beat. And we'll try to answer and, you know, keep the conversation going with as much as you want us to talk about. All right, finally, we want to thank Netflix for being our second sponsor of this episode of The Social Hour. If you're familiar with Netflix, then you know that it is simply the best way to watch a variety of movies, TV shows, instant streaming, buy DVD. Obviously, you know, hardcore Netflix users know that used to be the only, you know, you ordered, you built a queue on Netflix.com using your account, and then it just came in the mail in order of how you wanted your movies to come. You could reorder your queue and get a few out at a time, that kind of thing. And Netflix has really grown up, and now they have an instant streaming queue as well. Chad, did you want to pull up Netflix and show off? There you go. Yeah. So if you're trying to figure out, well, you know, is Netflix really going to have the kind of titles that I'm interested in? Definitely go to their website and just browse the selection to get a sense of the fact that they've got new releases, stuff being added every day, by the way. Old classics. They have variety of TV series, ongoing as well as TV series that ended. I mean, maybe there was a TV series that you never got into, and you think, it's too late, it's not around anymore. Or, Mad Men, for example, it's about to go into its 5th season, I'm so behind. You can get caught up, and then you can go back to watching it on AMC every Sunday, like everyone else who has been watching it since the beginning. There's a lot of choices that Netflix gives you, and it's really a lot of fun. I actually watch them. I've been watching Netflix through my Roku box recently, but Roku, your Apple TV, straight through your TV widget, if you're lucky enough to have a TV that has one, or your Xbox 360, your Wii, your PS3. I mean, or your computer on the go. I mean, there are so many different ways that you can watch Netflix movies and TV shows. I actually sometimes I start watching a movie on my iPad when I'm at the gym, and I'm almost rarely at the gym long enough to get through an entire movie. So I stop it, and then I can continue at home at my leisure, and will remember where I left off. So it's almost like having, like your movie library in your back pocket. If you're the kind of person who moves around a lot and likes to watch content on mobile devices as well as your fancy schmancy home theater system. Netflix.com/twit is the way that you can sign up, and if you use that code, you get to try out Netflix for 30 days for free. Completely free. 30 days of content. Think of how wild you could go. Now, if you already have a Netflix account, you're already in there, you're already using it. So what I would suggest is let somebody else know about it. Say, hey, use netflix.com/twit. You get 30 days free. Go crazy. Catch up on that TV show that you're years behind on, or that sort of thing. It's kind of a fun little gift just to let somebody know about it, and then you help spread the word about us as well. Netflix.com/twit. We thank them so much for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. And now, Amber's Rad or Fad.
The pressure was on today, Sarah. About 15 minutes before the show started, I was thinking, I don't have a Rad or Fad segment. I haven't found anything yet. So I started to explore some sites that I, don't go to all the time to see if anything popped up. And immediately I found a service called theicebreak.com. Theicebreak.com is a place for couples. So it's a social network that is just for couples. And this is a destination where you can essentially track, analyze, and enjoy romantic relationships. So this is a place where couples can go, they can share little moments, they can engage, and they can track how the relationship is going. I'm trying not to laugh because I don't know who has time for this. Nonetheless, I'm sure some people have spent time on the site and are using it. And you can do a few other things, but that's kind of the gist of what the Icebreak does. Now, I think I'm going to have to put this into, oh no, Sarah, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, this is terrible. I'm going to try to hold it. Okay. I'm sorry. I just could feel it. I was like, this could not make it to the YouTube.
Well, sorry, you were like building up to. I thought you were gonna try to have to make this this horrible decision between Rad and Fad, and then turn into a sneeze.
I was trying to hold the sneeze in. Okay, so sorry about that. So basically, the Icebreak, I've put it into, I think, the Fad category because, Sarah, if 50% of marriages fail, then that's not really rad. So relationships don't necessarily last all that long. So I don't know. I don't know if
relationships are already, when something ends and the two people are both active online, it's already pretty messy. I mean, I've seen this time and time again. I mean, I've even had I've had enough experience with it to know that if it was going to be really, it could be incredibly awkward. Now, I'm looking at our chat room, and a lot of them are saying, for example, I'm a woman and I would not use something like this. This is not cool. Now, I don't necessarily think that this is wrong for all couples. I know many couples, I can think of, like, one of my cousins and his wife, for example, are super close. And I think that they would probably like some of the services and kind of like fun little quiz games and things like this that something like the Icebreak would have to offer. You could admit that this would be fun for the right couple who are who really like to do things together and consider themselves a team, you know, not necessarily 2 units, but a single one. But that also scares me a little bit, because then it's like, yeah, what does the ice break do for you once that relationship's over and you've soured on it? It seems like you would have no incentive to be a part of it if you were a single person, and there are so many single people.
And then what if you get so obsessed with how it's analyzing your relationship and you see all these charts and you're like, oh, it's going down, but maybe it isn't really, but you're reading too much into it. You know, it adds so many layers to a relationship, which is always a difficult thing anyway. So I don't know, but I'm like you. It's really hard for a service like this to say, oh, this is just totally a fad. It's not cool at all. Because even if it helps save one relationship or make one, you know, makes one couple really happy, then I would hate to judge it in that sense, because I think it could be a cool thing, like you said, for the right individuals. But generally speaking, I don't know, you know, will this be around, 5 years down the road? I don't know. It's hard to say, Sarah.
Vincent in chat says, it seems too structured for relationships. Relationships are supposed to be natural. Now, I also, and someone had said, hey, I found my wife online. Tony in our chat room said, so it's like, I think that some of you will say, oh, I just would have no use for something like this. And other people would say, I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily hate it just because it's like a relationship thing online. I think, though, that it comes across to me as a fad because it's trying too hard to be a social network that just isn't like the other social networks. I mean, I don't know if this is really a great relationship tool or just somebody trying to make a social network that can say it's different than a Facebook or a Google+.
Maybe, Sarah, this is an opportunity for another challenge to our amazing audience, both the listeners and the viewers as well, to see if any couple has gone in here and used this. Because I guess we're being a little bit judgmental because I haven't gone in and asked Chris to also join. And I don't know if I don't think I want to. So if someone else wants to take that step and break the ice and head on over, then that you could let us know by Twitter, email, or do a little video.
Absolutely, yeah. If you like the ice break or you hate it, but if you have experience with it, then you probably would be more qualified to talk about whether it's rad or fad than us. On the surface, I'm going to go with fad, and I think we agree. But again, that's me judging a book by its cover. So
yeah. So help us, please.
Help us, please, because we don't know anything about relationships. What do we know?
We know we're unmarried. We're in our, early 30s, late 20s.
You're really much more in a relationship than, you're almost married. So
yes,
and you guys are parents, and so I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm
Sarah needs
clueless.
the ice break. Sign up now, Sarah. You need the ice break.
So Amber, we used to do this on Net at Night all the time, and so I thought I'd kind of throw us a curveball and end with a video of the week, which was something that was sent to us via a tweet from Tahel Sofer. I hope I'm saying your name right, Tahel. But it's I don't know how social it is, but it's definitely a fun little techie video. So I thought we could say goodbye and then go in and play the video. If that's okay with you. I know
I love this video. I don't get it. I don't really totally understand it, I think, but
it's weird. Yes.
It's weird, but I love it. I don't know why.
Good. All right. So we're in agreement. Do we have a guest next week? I don't think we have anybody on the books yet. That would be August 29th. But if we get somebody amazing, we'll let you guys know midweek who to expect. Although sometimes we don't have a guest, and that always works out well too.
That's okay too. I'll try to stumble upon for any fans out there. See how that goes. I'll push the Canadian angle there, Sarah.
Very much so. You Canadians, you stick together. You can get all the good Canadians, because you're the Canadian goddess. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for watching this episode of The Social Hour, episode 22. In the can. Reminder that we do shoot the show live on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And we'd love to have you join us. It's always fun to get your instant feedback. I'm pointing at the chat room. If you're wondering, what does Sarah keep looking at? That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at you guys. But if you don't, you can always watch us on demand or listen to our audio feed anytime you want. We don't mind, as long as you're enjoying the show.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy the video.
Everybody, and enjoy this very interesting video about why PDFs. What else?
How do you convert PDF? should I use to find joy? Losing my image quality. What